the amateur, the unsophisticated person, the person without the good information would have thought all the way along, I don't want to pay all this interest. Let's see if we can pay that loan off faster
Dave
and pay
Ramsey.
off. Yeah, that would be the stupid Dave Ramsey philosophy.
Exactly.
Now, listen, I think Dave Ramsey is great for the audience he addresses. For the middle America, most people that just don't get it, Dave Ramsey's fine. But if you want to make money and get rich, Dave Ramsey is, you got to stop listening to him once you're out of the hole. I love to travel. I've been to 83 countries. I know you love to travel too, George, and you're living abroad, which is super cool. My girlfriend loves to travel too, and here we are in Finland, Russia, on a cruise in Eastern Europe, Yacht Week, Croatia, and income property allows you to do this stuff. You can. It's always working for you. It's just a beautiful thing like that. Info about my podcast, what we do. We provide the complete solution to real estate investors. Here are some things you can use to increase your return on investment. So let me just jump right ahead to the inflation stuff you asked about. Okay, right. Here it is. Probably all of your listeners, because they're a sophisticated crowd, they understand that the U.S. and pretty much every country in the world, it's not just the U.S., has a huge problem. They have all overspent. They are in debt. Every country, pretty much, not every country, but almost every country has got a huge spending problem. They are in debt. Japan is the worst in the developed world, but the U.S. is pretty tough too. I've identified six ways the government could get out of this mess. 6 ways that they could get out of their debt problem, and it's about $20 trillion right now, but forecast into the future, it's about $220 trillion with a T. Mm-hmm. Now, compare that to the size of the GDP, in other words, the earning power of the country every year, which is about, I don't know, what's the overall GDP now? About $18 trillion, probably, something like that. A little more than that,
probably 20.
Yeah, to call it 20 trillion, round number, right? So 20 trillion GDP, over 20 trillion in debt, but with the unfunded entitlements coming over the next 15 years or so, that's about a $220 trillion problem. Mm-hmm. It's a giant problem. I mean, it's a mess. So the government could just default. They could say, look, sorry, we can't pay for all the promises we've made. We're broke. We just can't keep the promise, and have austerity measures. And we see how that plays out in France and Greece and Spain and everywhere around the world almost, is instituting some kind of austerity, and that people take to the streets and there are riots, and it's pretty ugly. So that's unlikely because it's politically unpopular. Okay. And they could raise taxes, but the reality is the problem is so big, there aren't enough taxes to raise. Okay. Not enough taxes to raise. They could have a yard sale. We could sell the ports to Dubai. The Bureau of Land Management could sell off land, things like that. We could have Chinese companies own our toll roads in the U.S., and this is all happening. Okay, we didn't end up selling the ports to Dubai, but it was talked about. We can sell military equipment to foreign countries.
Let me just interject there real quick. I just did a video on the asset side that the government admits to. This is their numbers, not mine. Mm-hmm. They admit to having $4 trillion in assets. So look at that balance sheet when you got $4 trillion in assets and 200 in liabilities.
It's amazing, really, that at times Apple Computer has had more cash on hand than the U.S. government.
Oh yeah,
isn't that unbelievable?
Yeah.
Oh, I tell you, it's something else. So the fourth thing we could do from the government perspective is the American military could be used as a machine to steal assets from other countries. Mm. And if you think about it, that's what everybody accused us of doing in Iraq. I'm not saying true or false. I'm just saying it's an assertion that's been made. Steal the oil. But if you think about it, that's really the history of the human race. I mean, Napoleon was revered for being such a great general, but he was really a thief with a military, with an army. okay,
Yeah.
that allowed him to be a thief. We could use the economic hitmen, the more covert methods. John Perkins wrote a great book called Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Fascinating about how these deals are done with other countries. On the positive side, technological innovation. Okay. Hopefully, technology will rescue us all, and there will be some great thing that creates a lot of prosperity in the areas of energy, biotech, nanotechnology, whatever, right? But the most likely thing, and I'm sure
By
you'll
far,
agree,
by far, by far.
inflation. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the government will inflate away the debt. And what I propose is that everybody listening, every investor, do the same thing. Let inflation inflate away the debt. So think about it like this, okay? The US owes China over $1 trillion, right? Because that's the trade deficit, that's the imbalance. So if there's 10% inflation, that's equal to $100 billion. If we owe that money in dollars and the dollar goes down in value, then in real dollars, we owe less. The debt has been inflated away. Poof, it's magic. It's a beautiful thing. It's a great business plan. So people need to understand something I call inflation induced debt destruction.
Mhm.
Say that 10 times fast.
Yeah, no, I've heard you talk about this so
Yeah.
many times. This is awesome, awesome concept.
We'll abbreviate it. We'll call it IIDD, inflation induced debt destruction. So, what we want to do is have this benefit us as investors, okay? And to do that, we need to understand the difference between real and nominal, okay? Now, I don't have a dollar bill with me, but at my live conferences, I usually pull out a note, a bank note, right? $1, $20, whatever. And I say to the audience, I say, what is this called? And they'll say, it's called $20. And I'll say, okay, that's what it's called in 2019. What was it called in 1971? It was also called $20. But there's a difference in the value, right? That's the difference between the name, the nominal, and the real, right? That's the difference. Inflation is this insidious hidden tax that destroys purchasing power. It destroys the value of savings, stocks, bonds, and thankfully, debt. It destroys the value of debt. This is the hidden wealth creator. It's the most powerful method of wealth redistribution. It redistributes wealth from lenders to borrowers and from old people to young people. Interesting. This is how wealth is transferred through the generations, not as much by inheritance as through inflation, because old people generally have assets. They have those things like savings, stocks, and bonds. Young people generally have debts. So if inflation comes, it destroys the value of their debts in a good way. It gets them out of debt, right? So there's an example. You have $1 million in mortgages, 10% inflation. The real value of those mortgages is only $900,000.
Mm-hmm.
Now, lest anybody think this is some esoteric theory, let's look at the screen here. This really happened to tens of millions of people. It's not a theory.
In the US, by the way, I want to point out this is the US he's looking at.
Yes, it is the US, but the concept held true in many other countries. I mean,
well,
if
Jason,
yeah.
let me say one thing here real quick. I got
Sure.
something to prove your point very well.
Okay.
I just went to lunch before our call here, and I took this with me. I don't know if you can see that.
Is that a Zimbabwe note or what is it?
No, this is Colombian pesos.
Oh, okay.
But this is 10,000 Colombian pesos.
Wow.
Which can buy me about a cup of coffee. Okay. So what I always like to say is just think about this. When they first came out with pesos, do you think that they wanted all of these zeros?
No.
On the currency? No, this started off.
I'm sure one
10.
peso had value. Like one peso probably would have bought you a coffee then.
Just like $1. So let's say 50 years ago, this 10 million pesos would have gotten you a car.
Mm-hmm.
Now this 10 million or 10,000 pesos buys you a cup of coffee.
Yeah,
There you
I
go.
know. I know. That's inflation. That's the
Yeah.
difference between real and nominal, right?
Mhm.
The name is the same. Nominal, the definition of nominal is in name only. That's what
Yeah.
nominal means if you look
And
up the definition.
let me take it a step further. Just think if 50 years ago, or let's just say, as an example, 20 years ago, you would have taken out a mortgage to buy a home for
Yeah.
10,000 Colombian pesos, right?
Right.
20 years later, you could pay off your entire loan, yet
Yeah.
you'd still have the house for a cup of coffee.
Yep, yep, yep. I wanted to find it, oh, I think this is no, this is not it. Oh, this is Hong Kong money. But one of my listeners sent me some Zimbabwe dollars. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's
and he
great.
sent like a few of these, and I think one of them was like a
A
one
trillion
trillion
had to be.
dollar note or something.
Yeah.
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 They had so much inflation that the currency basically became worthless.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just but and this is terrible. Look, at the point of this is, George, and you know it all too well, and most of your listeners probably do. This hurts most people. It's terrible. It's devastating. It's awful. Okay? It's an awful thing. But for those people in the know, for those people listening to this now, you can act in a way that you can win through this strategy. The same way governments win and the same way central banks win. They benefit from inflation because they owe money to other countries. They devalue their currency. In other words, inflate it away, and the
Mm-hmm.
debt gets inflated away. I had Pat Buchanan on my show years ago, the presidential candidate Pat Buchanan,
Yeah.
and he said, Jason, I told him about this concept on the show, and he said, Jason, you are so right. Their debts, meaning people that have debt, get inflated away on a sea of inflation. He said it in this poetic way. I'm not quoting him exactly, but it was really good. Okay, so let's do these charts and we'll wrap it up. Okay,
Cool.
so look here. I know there's a lot of numbers on the screen, but just look at the first row. 1972, inflation rate is 3.2%. Someone buys a house, a dollar is worth a dollar. What did a house cost back then? Let's take a look at the top. In the green area, the median house was, and I'll just round off for speed, okay? The
Sure.
median house was about $18,000. If you got an 80% loan to value and put down 20%, you would have borrowed about $14,000. The interest rate in 1972 for this house, this mortgage, was 7.37%. Okay, makes you realize how good rates are now. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and you got a 30-year mortgage. Now, watch what happens. Here's the magic, the hidden wealth creator that very few people understand, but everybody watching is about to understand. So 3.2% inflation, 1972, a dollar is worth a dollar. Let's fast forward 12 years to 1984. There's a famous book by George Orwell called
Mm-hmm.
1984,
That's
right?
right.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's sadly very prescient too.
Yeah.
That dollar in just 12 short years from 1972 to 1984 went down in value to where that dollar, it was now worth only 40 cents.
Wow.
So these people in 1972 were making mortgage payments. They were writing a check, George, every month for $101. But by 1984, 12 years later, the real value of that check they were still writing, the check still said $101 every month. They were writing the check. But the real value of the check was only $41.
Mm-hmm.
This is why, and I'm sure this has happened to a lot of people listening. I know it happened to my mom. She bought her first house in 1976, and she complained and stressed and worried that the mortgage payment on that house in West Los Angeles, California, an expensive
Mm-hmm.
area,
Yeah.
was $416 per month. Okay.
Yeah.
Just 4 years later, by 1980, and then 8 years later, by 1984, that mortgage payment felt like nothing to her. But in the beginning, it felt pretty onerous. Why? Because inflation destroyed the value of the payment. It not only destroys the value, thankfully, of the payment every month, but it destroys the value of the balance the borrower owes. Two great things, right? Okay, let's go to the next screen and let's look at how this plays out overall. Let's fast forward to 2001, 30 years later, 3 decades have passed. Let's look at how this all worked out for them, for the millions of people. Basically, now that dollar was worth 24 cents. They made their last payment of $101 per month, but it only felt like $24, okay,
Wow.
in real value. And let's summarize it by looking at the green area. Remember, they borrowed just over $14,000, but with all the interest that they paid in nominal dollars, they repaid over $36,000. Now, the amateur, the unsophisticated person, the person without the good information would have thought all the way along, I don't want to pay all this interest. Let's see if we can pay that loan off faster.
Dave Ramsey.
Pay off. Yeah, that would be the stupid Dave Ramsey philosophy.
Exactly.
Now, listen, I think Dave Ramsey is great for the audience he addresses. Okay.
Yeah, that makes one of us.
Yeah, well, here's why.
I'm not a big fan.
I'm not a fan either, but I'm going to give him a little bit of credit here.
All
okay,
right, fair enough.
Look, most people are really just dumb financially. Okay, they get themselves into debt. They go buy a new car they can't afford. They go on vacations they can't afford. They run up their credit cards they can't afford. Dave Ramsey is good for that audience. Consumer debt is bad. Investment debt is good. Dave Ramsey is great for like the idea of how to get out of the hole.
Yeah, okay? I'll give him credit there for sure. Yeah,
give him credit there. And that most people are in the hole. So for the middle America, most people that just don't get it, Dave Ramsey's fine. But if you want to make money and get rich, Dave Ramsey you got to stop listening to him once you're out of the hole. Cut your spending, get on a budget. Dave Ramsey, that's great. But if you want to invest and win, Dave Ramsey's game is the playing not to lose game. But your listeners and your viewers want to play to win. Okay. Right. So this is the positive strategy, the proactive strategy. Okay. Dave Ramsey's like the defensive strategy. Okay. So don't pay off the mortgage. In real dollars, after inflation hit those dollars, you have to adjust them. In real dollars, they only repaid, as you can see here, just over $16,000. So let's look at the interest rate. They thought they were paying 7.37% every month. But after inflation came along and debased or diminished the value of that interest rate, their effective interest rate was really only 1.06%.
Wow. That's really powerful. I mean, no one's ever heard of this. This is really, really powerful.
This, folks, is inflation-induced debt destruction. It's the most beautiful thing in the universe. Okay, I love this stuff. Now, but wait, there's more, as they say on the late night infomercial. Okay,
I say that all the time on my videos.
Yeah, but wait, there's more. So you also, by living in this house, remember, this is not a rental property. A rental property is dramatically better than this. This is just a normal owner-occupied house. You also get a tax benefit because the mortgage interest is deductible and the property taxes are deductible. So after tax benefits and after inflation, how does it look then? In real dollars, adjusted for tax benefits and inflation, they only paid $12,655. But wait, you ask, didn't they borrow $14,614? Yes, they did. But after inflation and tax benefits, their interest rate was negative.
The bank paid them.
They got
negative
paid
interest rates
to borrow. Yep, negative interest rates. So their effective interest rate was negative 1.16%. They got paid to borrow the money. And George, they lived in the house for free for 30 years. This is incredible. Now, think about how much better it is on an income property because they outsourced their debt to somebody called a tenant. And hopefully they got some positive cash flow, a few bucks extra every month, and they got depreciation, which you don't get on your owner-occupied residence.
And I want to add another benefit to that. And maybe you can just touch on this quickly before before you take off, I know I really appreciate your time so far, Jason. I know you're a
Oh,
really
my
busy
pleasure.
guy.
My pleasure.
This is
My
really
pleasure.
awesome.
Yeah.
But a lot of my viewers ask me all the time, well, George, I know the economy is fragile, and what if we get an economic collapse in the United States? What do I do? I mean, do I just buy 100% in gold, or how do I do this? And what I tell them, and I need to do a video on this, is we've had economic collapses in the world since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
So all you have to do is look at other countries that have experienced this type of economic collapse and ask yourself, study history and look at what people in those countries or families in those countries have done to maintain their wealth through that collapse. And it's three things: gold, artwork, and real estate, and mostly real estate. So do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I'm not a fan of gold or artwork. Now, I do love beautiful art. You can see this art behind me. I buy stuff at art auctions, but that's more for personal pleasure. I've noticed that the art is very illiquid and it's very hard to sell. So it may theoretically go up in value, but try selling it. There's just no liquidity. Okay. Now gold, if it's bullion, it's very liquid. There's everybody trades it in gold, and that's all great. But those are one-dimensional asset classes. They don't have any cash flow. They don't have any tax benefits. In fact, they have terrible tax treatment. Actually, it's really bad because it's a collectible, and that's taxed at a higher rate when you sell it. So I don't like those assets at all. I mean, some of my companies own a little bit of that stuff, and frankly, my companies own the artwork too. I don't own it personally, but those just aren't very good asset classes. If there's an economic collapse, the best thing you can own is a store of food and guns and bullets. And I mean, how bad do you think the collapse will be? Gold won't even matter for 3 months into it. Here's the formula. Okay. And I host another podcast called the Holistic Survival Show, where I've interviewed all these crazy survivalist people that think the world is ending. And what I realized after doing over 200 interviews on that show years ago, I don't really publish many more nowadays, is that these people are so busy preparing for the end of the world and avoiding death that they're forgetting to live in the first place. Okay.
Right.
So there's a balance. Okay. But
when
food
I'm talking about
and water and gold and guns, I guess.
Well, when I'm talking about economic collapse, I'm talking about something like Argentina, something like, maybe a Zimbabwe, maybe not even that bad, but something like that, where we go through some serious economic problems, the dollar gets deflated away. And in that case, yes, we're not living in caves and eating canned goods. But if you want to look at something that's going to maintain your purchasing powers, a store of wealth, I think real estate is proven throughout history to be a great asset to accomplish that objective.
No question about it. The thing about income property that makes it really good is it's a multi-dimensional asset class. And it just has special characteristics that other investments don't have. And that's why it beats them, because you can make your profit in a lot of different ways. Gold, it's only one. It's buy low, sell high. That's it. Okay.
Well, I just like gold as an insurance policy, not really as an investment.
I don't mind that idea of owning a little bit of it. I get it.
Yeah, Jason, I really appreciate your time. It's awesome. Like I said, I've got so much respect for your work, and just by going through this Excel spreadsheet, it just goes to show how extensively you really know this topic. It's really, I mean, I learned a lot from that Excel spreadsheet that even I didn't know. So really appreciate it. And now for any of my viewers, and I know a lot of you, per my suggestion in my videos, a lot of you are thinking about rental properties. And I have no affiliation with Jason other than just really having a respect for his work and being a good buddy. But if you're in the market, if you're thinking about this, definitely go to Jason's website. I think you can, correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, but you can contact one of your investment advisors on your website, and they can just answer all your questions. They take you from A to Z, just hold your hand through the whole process. And is that kind of how it works, or?
Yeah, absolutely. We have investment counselors that will help you. There's no charge for this. It's absolutely free. We're a real estate company. We're a real estate referral network. When you buy properties through our network, that's how we make money. We also host some live conferences. We've got one that'll be coming up in Southern California real soon. And George, if you make it to the United States, we'd love to have you come.
Might take you up on that.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, we'd love to have you. That'd be awesome. We're just here to help. This is my mission. My mission is to save people from the financial services industry that is largely a scam.
Yeah,
Wall Street
yeah.
does a great job of separating people from their money. It's an insider's game. It's rigged. Get control of your own assets. And don't relinquish that control to other people. And that's what income property can do for you. So my website is jasonhartman.com, just my name, jasonhartman.com. And then the podcast is available on all the normal podcast platforms, and it's called The Creating Wealth Show. So, George, thank you so much. I know we only met a couple days ago, but and I just discovered your videos for the first time last week through one of our clients who said you mentioned me on your videos. So, thank you for what you do. It's really great, and you're really teaching people a lot of stuff. You're a great teacher.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And let's do this again soon, Jason.
All right. Thanks a lot, and happy investing.